that showed up. Indulge me a few moments. For you see, Moses gave the law, but in the 5 books of Matthew, Jesus is giving the new covenant. You failed with Moses, but I'm here to tell you that now God has given you a new covenant because the law you could not keep. But I'm giving you something that's going to take you even above the law. You see, a third thing is that Matthew seeks to authenticate Jesus in the eyes of the Jews, of the crowd that been in this gospel, because unlike any other gospels, when I say Matthew is different, for instance, you remember John starts out with a theological disclosure. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. And now he wanted them to know that law came by Moses, but grace and truth comes through Jesus Christ. You messed up. All you could do was be held to your problems, but Jesus has come to free you from what you've been into. I need you to help me here. And so when I look at Luke's gospel is different because he didn't start out talking about Jesus. He started out talking about John the Baptist. And now notice when you look at Mark doesn't even bother. When you see Jesus, he's already grown up. And so all of the gospels are different. And now I know when you read the Bible, you skip over the genealogy. And you don't want to take time out to look at who begot who. This man begot this one and this begot that, and they got somebody else. But now, and it skips all the way down, and you probably didn't tune in to me till I got down and I read the point. Now the birth of Jesus was on this wise. Everything else was cut off until you got to that part. But for the Jews, genealogy was extremely important. For them, one's destiny was determined by one's genealogy. And in the Jewish life, you could not proclaim to be something if it was not founded upon where you came from. An example is that if you're going to be a priest, you got to be connected to the Levites. If you're going to be a king, you got to be connected to David. You just can just show up and say, I'm a king, or show up and say, I'm a priest. You just can't say, I'm called to preach, except there's something in your line that says that you belong to the Levi family. You see, Matthew is writing to them to tell them that he needs to trace the bloodline, and he can trace the bloodline all the way back to David and all the way back to Abraham. You see, both of these is in Jesus' bloodline. You see, it's Abraham's bloodline that made Jesus a Jew, but it's David's bloodline that made him a king. So I'm connected by the fact that I belong to Abraham, and also I'm a king. He is a king because he's connected to David. Please bear with me, because he can be who he claims to be because of his heritage. Matthew wants them to know. And Matthew says, if you want to know something about Jesus, you have to know something about his kinfolk. You got to know where he's from. Look at Matthew's structure in introducing Jesus. He says, before I get you to number 18 and that he's born, let me just take you in his background. And so before you look at his birth, there's some stuff you need to know about where he come from. And when you look at Jesus, there's some stuff all of us need to know about. Well, you see, when you look at Matthew gives us, in verse 17, he talks about the genealogy. He says, in the eyes of a Jew, they would usually divide their genealogy into clusters of 7 generations. And the number is significant in the Jewish mind because in the number 7, there is exaltation and there is completion. And so a good genealogy would be divided into 7 generations and 3 groups of 14. And when you add that up, that comes 3 clusters of 14 makes 42. 42 generations. But when I look at that, and if you ever go back to your Bible and read the Old Testament and read this, you're going to have a problem. And the reason you're going to have a problem, because Matthew says there's 42 generations. But the Old Testament, when you read it, you're going to find about 50 generations. Well, they say they're lying. No, he's not lying. It's true. And you got some problem with that. Let me see if I can't help straighten it out. You see, it really shouldn't surprise you, because there's some things Matthew left out. And if you would write the genealogy of your family, there's some people you would leave out.